Welcome to a Spiritual World podcast, a space where we explore the vastness within and around us, a place to remember that you are a spiritual world within a spiritual world, the mind within the mind of the all. Here, we journey beyond programming, past the pain, and into the true essence of our sovereignty. My name is Toriea, and my sole mission is for you to find the guru within and remember yourself as the creatrix of your world, embodying the power within you to build a life you love. As always, you're encouraged to go back to episode 1 for the full disclaimers on the terminology of mystic psychology. I am not a medical professional, and nothing shared in this podcast is intended to replace professional medical or mental health care. The term mystic psychology is not used in a clinical or medical context and has no connection to the medical field or industry. It is a spiritual and energetic framework rooted in the ancient wisdom and sciences of Hermeticism, intended to support self-exploration and inner awakening. If you are seeking medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment, please consult a licensed medical or mental health professional. Everything shared here is based on my own personal lived experiences and energetic perspectives, offered in the spirit of empowerment and remembrance. Please take what you need and leave the rest. I am honored to walk beside you as a channel, a guide, and a fellow traveler as we continue on this path together. Welcome back to a spiritual world. I'm your guide, Toriea, and this is where the psyche is uncaged, Hermetic teachings expand the human heart, and where we remember that our inner world creates the outer one. Today, we're circling back to the first Hermetic principle of mentalism, the foundational law of the universe, and the hidden foundation of trauma. Because here's the truth that most healing models leave out and don't emphasize. Your suffering lives inside of your mind, not because you imagined it, but because your mind had to rewire itself to survive it. This is one of those foundational roots of the Hermetic teachings of mystic psychology. The intersection of energetic law, the nervous system, and the soul's evolution through experience. So today, we're not just unraveling illusion. We're returning you to authorship of your internal reality. So we all know the universe is mental, right? The all is mind, the universe is mental, is what the Kabbalion states. This is technically the first Hermetic law, and it's not a metaphor. Once we get into this journey, we understand that it's actually the mechanics of consciousness. Everything you experience, all of the sensations, relationships, grief, joy, patterns, perception, originates within a mental field of consciousness. Not the overthinking mind that we know as humans, but the all-source mind, the cosmic intelligence that births thought into form, that births us into form, because we are its thoughts in form. That holds memory, meaning, and myth. And this field isn't outside of you. It is you. Your inner world isn't reacting to reality. It's projecting it, which means not only is it you, it is everything around you, right? The I am, the all is one. And mystic psychology teaches us that this too is all about perception, not being passive, and that everything that we think or speak or can desire or think up is a spell. You don't just see the world, we cast it. And this is where healing begins. Not at the story level, but at the structure of meaning itself. And so, before we begin to explore how trauma distorts thought, there's something that I would like to talk about, and I kind of dropped on it a minute ago, and that is the word desire. Now, in season 1, we talked about desire. And if you haven't listened to that episode, feel free to go back and check it out. It's mighty good. And so I'm bringing it back into full circle today because mentalism teaches us that we create from the mind. However, what fuels the mind, right? What stirs the mental field into motion? And the farthest that I've been able to trace it back to, that is kind of like a foundational moment, is desire. Desire is the first tremble of new life. Source desired something, everything, us. Every experience began with a desire. So yes, desire leads to creation. In Hermeticism, desire is how the mental field begins to stir. In mystic psychology, desire is the soul knocking at the door of the nervous system saying, "It's time." If you feel yourself wanting peace or love, abundance, clarity, confidence, that's not weakness. That's readiness. Desire is the precipice of birth. It means your inner reality is already preparing to make space for the new. But here's the truth that most don't talk about. When we're in survival mode, our desires get distorted. Our mind loops and trauma patterns can create unconscious desires, not for healing, but for validation, revenge, or control. In survival mode, it's like we enter a parallel reality within the reality that we already live in, right? We're living in two different realities because our psyche, our mental landscape, whatever parts you want to call it, or it's all of us, get kind of split, right? And we start to lose who we thought we were. And it's not to say that trauma is bad, shouldn't happen, so on and so forth. We are here to experience new experiences that we wouldn't in a soul form. So always keeping with that in mind. Trauma does serve us. And it's super interesting because when you think about it from the concept that we're living in a reality, but trauma also allows us to enter into a parallel reality and experience that while living in a current reality, that's like a whole rabbit hole, a whole dissection to go down. And then if you experience more than one trauma, how many different types of parallel realities are you living in while also living in this reality, right? Multidimensional as fuck. That's what we are. And we don't even realize it. Thankfully, the language of this understanding is starting to surface, right? Our mental landscape is bereaving itself of the pain and the anger and the unjustifications that we have experienced as a human race, maybe as a gender, maybe as a race in general, any of those things, a culture, anything that we looked at that keeps us separate from one another, right? We have to work through those bereavements to find that we are one. And all of those different parts of us, right, are kind of different realities that we're living in. There have been circumstances, where words have been said to people that don't apply to the situation. However, that's someone else's trauma, right? That's the parallel reality that they're living in. It's not the reality that I'm living in or that you're living in necessarily. And so this is what we talk about when we talk about mentalism and the universe being mental and the all being mind. And so when our minds split, is it really a bad thing? Sometimes, right? Like we look at it as negative because we don't understand it on an alchemical level. We don't understand it in the language that we're being given in this podcast until now, right? And if we can understand, holy crap, these are parallel realities, and I kind of want to bring everything into one reality to live in a balanced format, right? Like maybe that's your dharma. I know that resonates very deep with me, is that one thing I'm looking for is balance, right? So we've talked about parts in previous episodes, and those parts run similarly to parallel realities, right? And some parts feed the parallel realities more than they feed the reality that we are desiring to live within. And so this is kind of the point of shadow work, is to keep synchronizing the parallel realities until they kind of become one. Same with like the masculine and the feminine, right? Everything is about marrying duality. And to first marry duality, you have to acknowledge and accept duality, which is that trauma serves us on a higher level, right? It's not just bad. There's not just hate and love, right? There's both of them, and they both serve a purpose, and they both take us to new heights of experiences in different ways. And you can't have one without the other. We've talked about that numerous times. So that's a nice little fun kicker, right? Like that's a cool little download that comes through about living in parallel realities while we're like, we know that we live in parallel realities, right? But the acknowledgement and the understanding of how we can perceive these parallel realities is based off of the experiences that we have, and if they cause us to split off and behave in certain ways in only certain circumstances. And as we heal, that unveils itself to each of us in its own time, in its own way, to where we can understand the depth of just how multidimensional we are. And that is what mentalism is here to tell you today. It's, I guess the key word of the podcast is multidimensional, and it is you. So, what comes next? When we talk about desires and traumas and things like that, desires can manifest, and yet they can also keep us tethered to the same emotional frequency as the pain we're trying to escape, right? They can keep us tethered to a certain parallel reality that really doesn't serve the ascension of Earth, right? If anything, maybe it just serves the destruction of Earth. And so therefore we want to pivot and make sure that our intention and where we're rooted from in that desire is anchored in something more sovereign, right? And it's not to say that like hate, like I said, hate is not a bad emotion to experience. However, if you are birthing your manifestation out of rage or revenge or needing to prove someone wrong, you risk the potential of creating, not just out of those platforms, but already encouraging the results to be the same as what that platform is. So because they came coded with that same frequency. And as alchemical masters later on down the road, we'll be able to pivot those frequencies. We'll be able to understand, oh shit, okay, let's pivot real quick and kind of be able to adjust that. However, as we initially learn, it's like those muscles, right? Like that we have to work up. As we initially learn, and there might not be, maybe in this reality, maybe in the ascension of Earth, it's more about moving forward and past that. But I do believe, like I said, multidimensional reality, I believe that you can never have a finite statement. At the moment that you have a finite statement, you open the door to the infinite. So for me to say that if you birth something out of revenge or anger or trying to cause someone else pain, that it won't end up in a heightened or ascended frequency, that's completely inaccurate, because there's definitely ways that can happen. But again, you have to become more of an alchemical master to be able to do those things and understand that and manipulate energy in that type of way. And it's also about taking accountability, right? It's being able to be like, oh crap, I really just created out of rage and anger. How can I pivot that? How can I turn this for my good and their good? How do I not live in the resentment or the revenge or wanting to cause harm to others kind of thing? So we are still living in the same emotional world as the person that hurt us if we decide to create from that lever or that platform. And mentalism teaches us that we create the construct of the world that we live in, right? And all of the parallel realities with it. And if our desires are reactive rather than sovereign, we have a tendency to lock ourselves into those old scripts, just playing out new roles or, dressing up in new costumes. So basically, the way that I see it right now in my head is like, if we choose to feed all of the parallel realities that split us through trauma, we're still scattered throughout all these dimensions. However, if we choose to heal those, we can take our power and our strength from each of those parallel realities and bring it into the one that we most want to be present in, the one that we most want to live in, the mental landscaping that supersedes all the others when it comes to Earth's ascension and you following your Dharma and completing it and having that soul fulfillment. Because the most powerful spell is the one that's cast with clean intention. And before now, we didn't all have the awareness to understand or seek where our intentions were stemming from. We just reacted. I know that I did. So before we can program our minds or reprogram our minds, we need to understand how they got programmed in the first place. And we've talked a lot about it. We've said the word trauma, right? So this isn't about ignoring trauma, right? I'm not saying like bypass it or do anything like that. So hopefully nobody's taking that message from this. However, it's about seeing how trauma creates mental reflexes that feel so real, we think they are reality. And again, this is kind of that paradox where they are a reality, right? Like this is, we're talking about the multidimensionalness of how trauma can inflict on us. And, but take for example, like when you're on your healing journey and you've decided, this is maybe a common one. Your body, like someone maybe moves too fast around you or, moves towards you, or maybe it's somebody that loves you and they're coming to give you a hug and you flinch out of fear, right? Because you couldn't read their action quick enough and because your body's living in this older state, right? Your heart may still hesitate in that moment. Your nervous system may still say, be small and stay safe, right? Like that's kind of what the flinch is telling you, like, make yourself unseen. Because trauma doesn't care if the belief is painful. It only cares if the belief is familiar. And that's the other end too. It's like trauma doesn't care if what is happening around you is happiness and joyful. It only cares if it recognizes something familiar. And so living in those states of trauma, living in those scattered parallel realities, even when your conscious mind evolves, the landscape of your subconscious may still be governed by outdated protections. And I'm not quite sure that makes sense, because I'm getting a crap ton of downloads that I'm trying to funnel through to you, but I'm also trying to follow along with my notes. So I'm just going to be completely honest here. And I'm trying to so make this seem, or at least try to be seamless and not like a different compartmentalized podcast episode. It's absolutely phenomenal, the downloads that I'm getting, and I'm so grateful for them. Thank you, benevolent beings. And higher self, yes, of course. But tying it in with the notes that I have, it sometimes feels wishy-washy. Yes, wishy-washy is the word I want to use. That I have two different currents kind of trying to go into a river together. And I'm sure that, when they blend at first, there's a little bit of a constriction. So, but anyways, I want to get back to that statement. So when your conscious mind evolves, the landscape of your subconscious may still be governed by outdated protections, right? And so what if we look at it as like when we're clearing these parallel realities, when we're clearing and cleaning up the trauma of our lives and moving forward in our sovereignty and in our healing to where they no longer hold us hostage, what if we're pulling that power back, right? Like I said, we're going to keep the power still, because every trauma gives us a gift, whether it's the gift of sight, sound, sense, whatever it is, right? It activates something within us. However, that activation might be wrapped up in some core parts of the trauma. And so we bring them back to the present reality that we most want to live in. And then we have to kind of absolve it in that present reality. I kind of look at it as like, if you're a horse, which is an amazing analogy right now, considering we're getting ready to enter the year of the horse. Think about a horse standing in the middle of its field, like it's one of the, think of it standing in the middle of its stadium, and it's got hurdles all around it. And each one of those hurdles is a parallel reality. However, if the horse mentally, through shadow work and all of these avenues that we know and that we practice, starts to clear these traumas and these weights and these emotions that have held it back in its patterns, then the hurdles start to move closer to the horse, until eventually the hurdles are kind of like stacked up around or all right in front together. And so therefore they are in its present reality, right? And it's not necessarily like a blockade, but it kind of looks like a blockade. Just follow me here. And so then what ends up happening next is that they become a lot easier to jump because they're right in front of the horse. But with each one that's compacted, we then kind of have to address, like, how will we use these powers? What will we turn these hurdles into, right? Like, and that's where we talked about in the last episode of, maybe the last episode. Actually, no, I think we're going to talk about it in this episode. I was trying to think. Yes, it's one of the, I have 3 practices. And so it's going to be one of the practices that come up in this episode that I have to offer you. But turning each one of those hurdles into something that then benefits your present reality's journey, right? And so that could be, turning fear into courage or peace or helpfulness or sight or intuition or discernment, right? And we'll get to that here shortly. So, but that's how I visualize it, is they're kind of constricting back to you because, right, you're not fractalized anymore. You're bringing all of these things back to you, and you're focused more on one reality than you are a shit ton of parallels and fractalized throughout them. And this is the fracture that mystic psychology actually seeks to heal. It's the gap between what we know and what we expect. And it's between what we desire and what we believe is safe to have. And as we eliminate the parallel realities around us that no longer serve us and that weigh us down, that's the dissection of, not only what we believe is safe to have, but also where is our desire creating from, right? Like, through my younger years, when I was riddled with pain and anger, I created from pain and anger. Very, very outspokenly, very harshly, and on a lot of levels, even consciously. Now, I didn't have the understanding that I have now, but I know that I followed my path. And that's one of the most beautiful things that I can be grateful for, is that even in the harshness and the pain that I caused people and the pain that I caused myself, which I still am working towards forgiving myself for little bits at a time, right? I'm unfractalizing. I'm bringing those realities in and forgiving them and allowing them to join this reality to where I'm more harmonious and I'm on this one kind of journey of Dharma to ascend. So, it's not, but it served me, and it served a lot of people around me as well on their journeys, because these were all soul contracts, right? These were all agreements that we had way beforehand. So mentalism says that you are not your programming, you are the programmer. And before you can reprogram, you must witness where your thoughts come from, how your identity was shaped by them, and why you might still be loyal to an inner world of survival, to a different parallel reality, because that's how we start to choose again. And so if you're thinking, here's the other side of it, right? Like we're going to jump into how the illusion of thought compares to the identity of trauma and how they kind of intertwine and entangle us in a really, really messy spider web that we feel stuck in, right? Because we all have the thought, like, my thoughts feel so real. How can they not be real? Especially when thoughts kind of make up the reality around us, right? It's that paradox again. They feel real because they are real, but guess what? We're the ones that make them real. That's the trap of mentalism when it is misunderstood. When you don't understand that you control your mental landscape and that you can say, this hate I feel, I no longer want to feel. This hate doesn't serve me. I want to choose, love. And sometimes it's hard to go straight from hate to love, even though they're on the same spectrum. Sometimes you have to work your way through the grief stage, right? You have to go through anger and denial and angst and frustration, acceptance, all of those things. Because most of us were taught to believe our thoughts are true, and they are. However, we were only taught half the truth, right? We weren't taught that we make our thoughts true, that we create them into being by attaching ourselves to them and making them finite. And if you've experienced trauma, those thoughts, half the time, didn't even start with you. They started as survival scripts, mental reflexes coded into your field so that way you would survive, right? The I'm too much, the I have to earn love, they'll leave if I rest, or if I show my real self, I'll be rejected. These are not just thoughts. They are wounds with language, and over time, they harden into the identity. This is how we cling to trauma. Not because we want to, but because it's what's become familiar, because we've lived in it long enough for it to feel, like that nicotine hit. It feels safe, it feels predictable, even powerful, because we've put all of our power into it. And for many, the identity of the one who was hurt becomes the only identity they feel control over. But here's the paradox. By staying there, we live in a world still shaped by the trauma. We lived in a magnitude of parallel realities where we're all split off, and some of us are fighting to kill Earth and others of us are fighting to ascend it. And even if those who harmed us are long gone, we could still be waging those wars against ourselves because of the programming that incurred from the initial trauma. We end up keeping ourselves tethered to that mental landscaping, creating from it, living in it, and becoming it, as well as expanding it into more and more realities, because we forget that we are mentalism. And mentalism asks us to get to know it, to re-examine what we believe is real and what we're still carrying, all because it once kept us safe. Right? Mentalism is asking us to get uncomfortable. So the question becomes, are you ready to stop narrating your life from the voices of your wounds? Because that's when mental alchemy begins. And so, like I said earlier, I've put together 3 practices to help us identify just a bit more, slowing our thoughts down slightly and attuning to our own current frequency. Each one of these practices you may already be doing even, or have just heard about them, and maybe this is your reminder to start them, or if maybe you stopped doing them, your reminder to come back to them. So, practice number 1 would be scripting as spell work. Scripting isn't just journaling. It's desire in motion. It's future memory, neural rehearsing, and a signal to your system that this is where we are headed now. So, when you are in an appropriate space, try writing out something like, I feel peace in my chest again. I'm no longer living for approval. I take up space with ease, and I love the way I think now. I trust my own mind. Even if you don't believe it, your nervous system starts to shift, slowly but surely. This is frequency training. And so, if you're making minimum wage and you want to get up to $20 an hour, start writing it. And it might take you a year or two to get there. It just depends. Everybody's path is different. But guess what? You will get there. Another example is, I feel peace in my heart. I allow others to love me, and I reciprocate that love in a way that is safe for me. I honor my boundaries, and while sometimes I feel I still waver, every step I take is in the direction of my own healing to reveal to me my next steps. Find the words that resonate with you. Allow your higher self to guide your words and claim where you want to be or where you are working on feeling peace or love or nurturance or healing. It could be in your mind, an organ, a muscle, your job, your housing, your relationship. Doesn't matter. It is all mentalism. It is all a mental landscape for you to craft and manipulate in a way that serves the highest good. Follow it. Follow yourself, your higher self, and allow that peace to teach you how to gain it, how to write it and reveal it to yourself, because you're making it real when you do that. So, practice number 2, inner dialogue as reparenting the self. The inner critic is not all of you. The inner critic is just the loudest part of you. And the inner critic was birthed from extenuating circumstances that did not serve you any longer or does not serve you any longer. The inner critic is a voice from someone else's mouth, potentially. When you hear, you'll never have what you want, or a limiting belief that is applied to you, like I won't succeed, ask, whose voice is this? Is it your mother's shame? Religious conditioning, maybe? Society's standards? Or your own fear for never trying in the first place? Then say something along the lines of, I see you, I hear you, and I thank you for however you've contributed to my life so far. However, this belief no longer serves me. What would you rather be now, or where would you rather go? Because this is no longer going to be allowed. Or setting some form of boundary, right? Because all parts of you just want to be witnessed and heard. The majority of them want to be transformed into something useful. They don't necessarily want to keep living in survival mode, especially when they see you trying to bridge the gap into healing. They want to join you. They want to go with you, but they're programmed. So that negative belief may tell you that it wants to now be peace within you, or hope, or truth, or sovereignty. I've had so many parts of myself that when I meet them and I have the conversation with them and they're ready to be released, they choose to stay and become something magnificent. And when I say magnificent, I also mean that they're aiding me now in the journey that I'm on. Maybe as an alchemical master or alchemical transmuter, hermeticist, right? Like if I really understand that I chose to go down into the depths of the lower vibrations to experience them, so then I can experience the heights coming back up, then therefore all of the parts of me have done their job. They went into survival like they were supposed to. They went into programming like they were supposed to. They went into the defenses like they were supposed to protect me, to keep me alive, to keep me here, to help me move through those dark arts, right? Like the darkest parts of me. And so now they're like, hey, we're ready to climb that frequency with you too. Because we went down low for you. Guess what? We're going to be there for you when you rise. And so they are given that opportunity in this practice to pivot and say, yeah, I don't want to be rage anymore. I want to be sovereignty or peace. And sometimes, and actually even in a conjoined journey, when I have these conversations with my parts, not only do they want to be transformed into something else that serves my journey, they also want to go somewhere for healing. So I always ask them, where would you like to go, right? And I have a lot that will go to Pluto for transformation. I have a lot that have gone to Mercury and Mars, Jupiter. Goodness gracious, they've gone everywhere, right? And they go there. And maybe that increases, right? Like maybe that's an honoring to those planets that increases my mental landscape tie-in with them, right? With the communication that we have astrologically. That's always a fun thought. Like I said, it's an honoring to give a part of you to another part of you, right? Like to another being in our universe. And they honor that. And so, Jupiter, Mars, or Pluto will step forward. And it's funny too, because when you do so many of these practices in a certain period of time, I know for me that Pluto was like a regular for quite a while. So I knew that Pluto was like stepping up its game in my life. And other times it's been other planets. So this is a loving reparenting practice that you can do for each and every part, each and every thought, each and every way that you feel, right? Like you can play with it, expand on it on your own journey. Let it magnetize and magnitude for you. Because the moment you dialogue with that part of you and you get it to express something new, that bruise, that brokenness, that programming knows that it's about to be healed. And another part of you goes free into the sovereignty that you are fully and completely at all times. So practice number 3 is conscious imagination as medicine. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's vividly imagined and what's physically experienced. So why not imagine, right? Imagine that when you walk into a room, you feel calm, and that your truth lands clearly when you speak, and that you know you're safe, and that you love being alive. Imagination is where your desires come alive without interference. It's the bridge between thought and manifestation, right? And you are the one that gets to determine how that bridge is built. Every time you imagine a better reality, you're saying, yes, I'm worthy of what I want, and that bridge is going to be golden towards ascension. And that is revolutionary. However, you can also falter in your desires, right? Like there's plenty of times my mental landscaping in its programming is like, yes, I want this glorious thing. I can make money. I can, be financially secure and financially stable. And I have this great affirmation and this great momentum of manifestation. Well, then, I put myself into the depths, into the waters, and I test it. How sure am I? Not only that I want that, but I feel that I deserve that, right? It tests how I feel about myself. And I have those days that I falter, where I'm like, oh, everything bad's gonna happen. Oh no, this is horrible, and before I know it, I'm 3 days into that, and my entire manifestation is falling apart. That's also revolutionary, right? Because it's showing me where I need to build those muscles. And I'll give you a very real life example on this conscious imagination as medicine. when I have an experience coming up that's really nerve-wracking, say, for instance, an interview. In my 3D job, I do a lot of consults, and, I kind of have to interview for clients. And so when I go into it, I vividly imagine and embody what it feels like after it's over, right? Like, yes, I got that customer to sign on with me as a client. And that, for me, is half the battle. Because if I can embody how I'm going to feel after it, then I don't need to focus on all of the details that might or might not occur in the interview, right? Because I can plan saying exactly like the perfect whatever it is, answers to all their questions, right? But then I would have to predict all their questions, right? Or I could plan out this perfect speech, but then what if it gets cut short? What if they pivot and they start asking about something else? You know what I mean? There's a lot of variables. And while I can create a seamless experience, I don't want to get hung up on the details. I just want to know that at the end of the day, I'm walking out of that individual's presence knowing that I am not the only one that is impressed with myself and what I am offering them, and that they feel secure and confident in choosing me to move forward with in their transaction. So those are the 3 practices that I offer you today. And there are, without a doubt, a magnitude of ways that you've probably already been doing them in the spirit world if you haven't been doing them consciously right now. However, I'm asking you or inviting you to invite yourself to bring them into your conscious awareness in the world of matter, because it will only increase your understanding of your own spiritual journey and the alchemy that you hold within. When we can see directly into our own minds and follow the pathways of creation, we have hit a whole new level. We've hit a whole new freedom or level of freedom that no one can take from us. A new freedom that we are here to reactivate. Not only within, but of course, all around us. See yourself as the tallest tree in the town you live in. And while awakening is really lonely, there's no other trees that are as tall as you, your roots are spreading far and wide under the grounds of that town, activating everybody that walks among that dirt in their own time, in their own space. And your roots are reaching far into the next town, on the outskirts, maybe just a little bit in, connecting with another tree that's like you. And though you may not be able to see them, they are there. Because we are activators, and we are anchoring in a new wave of consciousness. And so before this episode comes to its closing point, I briefly want to circle back and anchor back into the topic of desire. Because in the spiritual community, there is desire, and then there is non-desire. And there are different substantiated points on each. However, to only focus on one would be to eliminate the other, and therefore, a balance that is preceded. To understand duality is to understand the entirety. If you've studied non-dualism or spiritual detachment, you may have heard desire is something to dissolve. And whilst that may be true at the highest levels of stillness, desire is part of the path. If you've been in survival mode, desire is often the first spark of life that returns. I don't believe we're meant to demonize desire. We're meant to walk with it. Let it reveal our edges and our next evolution. Desire is a landscape, a mental landscape. You don't live there forever though, right? But you do walk through it. And what's on the other side is freedom. And this is the great mirror of our time. We are not only on the precipice of personal transformation, we are on the precipice of a new world, a spiritual world. One where less becomes more, health is non-negotiable, and harming others or celebrating harm is no longer tolerated. We are exhausted by the chaos. We are bored by the mundane, and we are done with systems that survive on our suppression. So what are we choosing instead? We are choosing peace. We are choosing a world where peace becomes the placemat, the new baseline, and we are scripting that world from the inside out, through desire. We are here to travel now through the mental landscapes of a new level of desire. Before, the desires of consciousness were quite different. Just look at humanity's history and you'll be able to tell. And now, over the past century, we've hit a peak and a plateau. A plateau where the old desires are played out and dying, and the new desires are peaking, paving a new way into the light. We will walk through the desires of happiness, peace, stillness, sovereignty, reserve, and so on. And then eventually, one day, each in our own way and our own times, we will find those mental landscapes where desire is no more. Where we have fulfilled our wishes and our dreams and our soul missions, and we are satisfied with everything we have because we know it is what is meant for us, and it is us, and we embody it fully as it fills us. To me, this is another way to describe Dharma in a lot of ways. It's not just a pathway, it's an achievable destination throughout. Knowing that you have a calling and following all the way those mental landscapings within change to help you achieve your goals within. The goals that your higher self feeds you to help in your soul's evolution. Having no desires is not the end of the journey, though. It's just another mental landscape to experience if your soul so chooses to do so. And if that is so, your soul will guide you there willingly and able. Never shame yourself in comparison to another teaching or a place someone else is on their journey. For each path crossed is intentional and only meant to help teach and heal you. Look inward always, and you can never get lost. Look outward too much, and you will stray from your path. And so, in closing out today's episode, I'd just like to leave you with this reminder. If the mind is the matrix, and perception is the projector, and desire is the tremor of the soul waking up, then healing is not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering that what you want wants you back. That desire is sacred. That the moment you long for something new, you've already begun creating it. Mentalism is your law. Mystic psychology is your hermetic path. Desire is your compass. For you are not broken. You are rebirthing. And you are doing it beautifully. We covered a lot of topics today in a very short period of time, so feel free to expand on each one individually through writing or meditation. And in the meantime, here's one more practice to help you integrate in your own sacred time and space. Write down one belief you no longer want to live by, and ask it, where did you come from? Ask yourself, what do I want instead? And ask that belief, what does it want to be as an alternative? Have an open dialogue with it. Let yours and its desires speak without censorship and without fear. And then respond with truth, power, vision, honor, and wisdom. Because desire isn't weakness. It's the soul's announcement of, I'm ready to live differently. And that's what we'll take forward into these coming days and into this new year. I'm ready to live differently. And the biggest part of it is just allowing it to become naturally and organically and lovingly. Until next time, on our next episode, namaste and many blessings on your way.